asking. I appreciate that. Hopefully we'll build up some people as this goes along. But I thought this was really important for us to have this meeting today, and which is one of the reasons why I was so happy to really start getting it going. Everybody could see the full screen, right?
Yeah, I'm seeing the full screen, yeah.
Okay, you're not seeing my my thing up on top, right? The control bar, do you see that too?
No.
No.
Okay, excellent. All right, so we're good. So what's gonna happen is, as you guys start getting more back into the flow of business as usual, people are going to ask you, hey, what's my house worth? And you're also going to hear buyers ask you, what is the market going to be? What is the market going to be like? So unfortunately, most people that are going to go about doing this are going to go about doing it in such a way that it's not necessarily going to make a lot of sense. And what I mean by that is they're going to go back on old ways to try to figure out what the new deal is going to be. Because nobody's ever seen this before. We don't know how to take this. We don't know what's going to come about. We don't know what the market's going to look like. I can tell you that we're going to be preaching something that's diametrically opposed to our existence, and that's real estate through less contact. So you need to understand that part of it too. We're basically giving away part of the store by telling people, by making people comfortable by saying we don't need as much human contact to get your home sold. What else are we saying when we say that? Think about it, guys. What else are we saying when we're telling them you don't need as much human contact to get your home sold?
You may not need us.
There you go. There you go. And that's the conundrum right there. So one of the things that I personally wanted to drill down on a little bit is, what's truly going to determine the value of the home? Is it going to be what the buyer wants to pay? Is it going to be what the seller wants to accept? Or is it going to be what the lenders are willing to lend to? Now, a buyer can want to pay anything they want to pay. A seller can accept anything they want to accept. And those are all variables. That's all based on wants and needs. There's no hard scientific data other than I want and I need. However, when it comes to a lender, lenders have a scientific way of looking at everything. They need to. In order for a lender to be a lender, they have to have a scientific way of looking at everything, because if they don't, what's going to happen is they're going to wind up losing their shirt. Because there's a lot of unknown entities about this market that we're going to have to dig into a little bit to really get us to where we want to go. So what I wanted to do is, the first thing I want to do is make sure that
Marcus, your volume up, or
what's that?
Your volume, I can hardly hear you.
You can hardly hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Let's see.
My computer's all the way up.
Is this a little bit better?
Go ahead.
All right, hold on 1 minute. Let's see if we can do something about this.
I hear you loud and clear.
You hear me loud and clear?
My volume is all the way up, but
all right, I'm not having any problem on mine. Let me test my speaker and my microphone. Just give me 1 second.
Okay, you go ahead. I'm gonna pay attention. I haven't got my ears closer.
Okay. Hello, hello, hello.
Good morning.
Hey,
Good morning, Marco. It's Jeffrey.
So everybody's good? Everybody can hear me?
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Morning, Marco. It's Keisha.
Hey, Keisha, how you feeling?
I'm coming along.
Good. Good.
How about you?
Good morning.
I'm feeling, good morning, everybody. Yeah, I'm feeling a little bit better myself. I have to say that it's a little depleting as far as energy goes, but that just might be because I'm an old white guy. But that's the only thing that's really affecting me is the energy level. Everything else seems to be going okay. I watched this video last night. I don't know how many of you guys had the pleasure of watching this one. This is from Tom Ferry. He called it's Step Up to Become the Voice of Reason. I think it's important for real estate agents right now to kind of gain the upper echelon. And the upper echelon here is not to talk about business as much as what we can talk about on how we can handle things moving forward, how we can get to a comfort level of our clients, and how in turn that's going to help us be better real estate agents and get more business as time goes on, because we're still in the business of making a profit. We just have to go about it a little bit in a different way. So I want you to watch this. It's fairly short. I think it's about 8 minutes, and then we'll get back together and we'll start really drilling into who I've been talking to, who I've been interviewing, and really the questions I've been asking and the answers I've gotten, I think will surprise you. So let's take a look at this, and then we'll go from there. Okay, guys?
Hey, good morning, Marco.
Good morning,
Jeffrey.
everybody.
Good morning, everyone.
Connect with them one-on-one. Hey, welcome to the Tom Ferry Show. It's April 6th as I'm filming this, and I want to discuss today what's on the minds of buyers and sellers right now. Think about it. If you're in the US, we've had 10 million transactions a year since I got started in 1989. 5 million buyers, 5 million sellers. Some of those properties withdraw, cancel, expire. Some of those transactions fall apart. But at the end of the day, you're talking about 10 million transactions a year. And I would argue that today, when you look at even the web demand of online shoppers, people looking for properties, people saving properties, that's still happening every single day. I believe the two most important questions that are on the minds of someone that's thinking about doing something in summer. Maybe they were thinking about doing something in this spring, and because of what's going on in our world, they paused that. But they're still thinking the same two questions. How's the market, pricing, what's going on today? And then how do I time this? And I guess what I would challenge you to do on this very short Tom Ferry Show is to think about how many people you have that were from the past, older leads, people you connected with, people that maybe even ghosted you in the past, and that's okay. Like, cut them a little slack. I would still be reaching out to them and maybe, just maybe, trying to book as many 15 to 30-minute Zoom sessions, one-on-one with people, where you're answering to the best of your ability the questions that are on the minds of prospects today. A lot of people are talking about, during these times, like, what is the right approach? And I'm old school, right? Having reflected even this morning, writing out my gratitudes on moments in time where things were hard and things were tough and I persevered. Moments in time where it wasn't easy, but I did it anyway and I kept moving forward. There's some people right now that are simply ghosting. And I talk about in leadership. In leadership, the whole game is see things as they are, not making them better and not making them worse, just what is, right? That's a big part of leadership. Like, are transactions being done in your marketplace? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, then you've got some insight there. If the answer is no, you might be the only city in the world that is completely stopped. I don't think that's the case. Seeing things as they are. Rule number 2 is you've got to over-communicate. You have to over-communicate in an environment like this, right? Going dark and hiding, not reaching out to your past clients, not reaching out to your sphere, not reaching out to your family. And hopefully the last couple of weeks, you've done all those personal calls. Hey, Kelsey, I just want to check in. How you doing? What's going on, right? Just to get a sense for where people are at. And honestly, everybody could use that extra sort of love and encouragement and recognition that you care about them. Once you've done that, and I'm assuming you have, it goes back to my 3 rules. Safety first, keep the business moving forward, and make sure that you're loading the cannon, AKA building your pipeline, because this will end. And when it does, as we've said, there's only going to be 2 kinds of agents. Agents that have done all the work, right, and are ready to take their buyers and sellers into the market. And there's going to be the agents that are scrambling because they haven't taken the time to do what I'm going to recommend right now. I believe the most important thing, if you were my mom and you were selling houses, if you were my little brother and you were selling houses, I would tell you right now, the most important thing for you is to be booking 15 to 30-minute Zoom sessions. Google Hangouts, use whatever you want, but Zoom is pretty popular right now. 15 to 30-minute sessions where literally you're reaching out and you're saying, Kelsey, I'm just checking in, a year ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, we were talking about timing the market and that you guys wanted to buy a house, right? We were talking about it in the beginning of March, and then what happened stopped you. I'm reaching out now first, checking in. How are you? Are you doing okay? Because you got to make sure that the person you're talking to, right, they're okay. Have empathy, right? Have compassion. And then if you're feeling it and it's appropriate, then you say, you know, Kelsey, what I'm doing for my clients right now is I'm scheduling 15 to 30 minute sessions. And we're using this Zoom platform so we can see each other face to face. And then also, so I can give you some behind the scenes access. There's really 4 things that I'm showing people right now to help sort of paint the picture of A, how's the market? And B, if you're still in the market, how do you time this situation? So what we're gonna look at is, you know, what's happened in history. And what do? You grab the KCM slides and you show them, hey, over the last 5 recessions, here's what's happened to home prices, right? As an example. Then I'm going to show you what the smartest financial institutions and the leaders of those companies are saying right now about this economy in this moment of time, right? Again, you can reference KCM or another that are telling us, here's what the smartest people are saying. The people that are managing trillions of dollars a year, who if they're wrong, those clients bounce and go to somebody else's bank and they take all their money. So they have to be pretty cautious these days. And then the third thing I'm going to show you is behind the scenes into the MLS, what's going on, what's happening with transactions, what's going on with prices, and I think it's going to shock you. And then, because I'm very active in the market and I'm very thoughtful when it comes to serving my customers, I'm tracking the shadow inventory. Now you might ask, what is the shadow inventory, Tom? The shadow inventory is the number of homes that have gone withdrawn just in the last few weeks. And I'm tracking those because if you say to me, boy, that's a really nice house, I recognize it's no longer on the market. Because of my agent-to-agent relationships, I'm going to reach out to those agents and ask about it and see, does their seller want to come back on the market? And maybe there's an opportunity for you to have the first shot at it, as an example. So what would be the best time for us to get 15 or 30 minutes together? You let me know. Now listen, as someone that has watched the Tom Ferry Show for weeks or for years, it's not often that I look you directly in the eyes of the camera and say, listen to me. Now more than ever, if you're not booking 7 to 15 of those appointments every single week and having honest, heartfelt, data-driven conversations about what's going on in your market to educate people. This isn't a sales pitch. This is education. This is helping customers who wanted to buy or wanted to sell, and now they're throwing their hands up in the air and they don't know what to do. This is an opportunity for you to serve. So I'm going to challenge you. 10, 15, 7, 18, you call it. But I want you to declare, how many appointments will you schedule with people via Zoom or Google Hangouts or whatever you choose to use, so you can be the one, the voice of reason, the educator, the one that's bringing them the market stats and what's really going on, because disinformation is hurting us, right? The hearsay conversations are hurting us. I talked to another agent, they said no transactions are being done, and you're looking inside the MLS and saying, well, that agent clearly isn't looking inside the MLS. Are transactions being done differently? Yes. Right? Safely? Yes. The right way? Yes. A little out of the box and being resourceful these days? Yes. But done nonetheless. Now is the time, my friend. So, short message, straight to the point, no editing, looking right at you and saying, this is your time. Step up, be great, book more appointments, answer more people's questions, connect with them one-on-one. And by the way, if your cat comes into the video or your dog barks in the background or your kids are walking really loud upstairs, none of that matters, because that's the new norm today. It's not about perfect, it's about done. That's the game. Have an awesome week, and I'll talk to you next week. Remember always, your strategy matters, and now more than ever, your ability to connect and to answer the questions for people. That's what rules today. See you soon.
All right, guys, what did we get out of that?
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. What did we get out of that? You just watched this video. What did you get out of it?
I missed it. I'm gonna watch it a little bit. Sorry.
Reach out, dig in, stay on top of your game.
Well, yeah, I mean, reach out, that's one thing, but it's not only reach out, it's reach out in such a way that we have a credibility. You see, There's going to be a credible way of talking to people, and there's going to be a way that's less credible. And the way that's less credible is if you believe that this market is going to be the same market that it was when we left this industry and then came back, you're sadly mistaken. That is not going to be the market. And if you think things are going to go back to normal, or whatever the normal might be, you're also sadly mistaken. Now, people are going to want to believe that. People are going to want to believe that everything's going to be the same as it used to be, but it's not going to be the same as it used to be because we're not the same as we used to be. We are looking at things every day and just bypassing them in our mind that would be horrific 4 weeks ago. If I told you 800 people a day would die in New York, and we just ask about those numbers after a few days, would you believe that? But yet that's what's happening. So we got to be able to look at things in a certain way. And I'm going to give you an idea of misinformation. I always try to be fairly cordial when I speak to other professionals, especially when I speak to TLs and PCs. But a PC posted something on their website that I found so egregious, I had to get back to this person and challenge their numbers because they put preposterous numbers for a 3-day period over 3 counties, which was Queens County, Nassau County, and Suffolk County. And I did the numbers, I ran the numbers every way I could, and I told them that they're egregiously mistaken. And who does this benefit? So basically the person told me that they wanted to be a cheerleader more than someone who's concise. And I said, I think you should find another job.
Oh, isn't that what Trump is doing?
Well, listen, this is not political, but I am telling you right now, if you don't trust in the people that you deal with to tell them the truth, we have a problem.
I agree.
Okay? So what we need to do is, these are the things we all have to take into consideration when we're going to market something or when we're going to look at value. It's location, market, age, condition, improvement, neighborhood, interest rates, and amenities that are accessible. Okay? That's the norm. That's the norm. The thing is market right here, interest rates, okay? Those things are going to impact more than anything else at any given time because it's not going to be seller driven. It's not going to be buyer driven. It's going to be lender driven. Now you could say to me, well, Marco, what happens if somebody wants to buy a house cash? They're going to have more leverage than ever before. Because if you work a cash offer the right way, you're going to be able to get the property at much less of a value. And you're going to be able to show them how dealing with someone who needs to mortgage a property, it's going to be a lot harder for them to get things done. And I'm going to show you in detail and give you facts and give you third-party information to kind of prove my point here. Because why do you think, as a trainer, I would put Tom Ferry into the equation? Why would I do that?
He's good.
No, because it's another vital piece of information that lends you to believe of what I'm saying is credible. Do you understand that? That's the same thing you do when you talk to a seller. It's not all what you think, it's what you know. And it's what you know based on market data, your education, and your understanding of the market. You see how that might happen, right? So what lenders are most afraid of right now, lenders are most afraid of risk, right? Let me go back to that. I'm sorry about that, guys. Let's go back here. Let's go back there. Let's move this over. Let's get rid of that. There we go. Okay, everybody sees the full screen? Everybody? Somebody?
I see a split.
You see a split. Okay, you're not supposed to see a split. So let's do this.
Oh, yeah.
How about now?
Yeah.
Now you see the full screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So let's work on that, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so the definite risk. Risk is a condition in which there is a possibility of an adverse deviation from the desired outcome that is expected or hoped for. Risk is not subjective. It's a state of the real world. However, risk can exist whether it is real or perceived. Risk can be imagined where the possibility of loss does not exist, yet there is a risk involved. That's what lenders are most afraid of right now. Lenders are afraid of the risk that you people present. When I say you people, I mean the public at large. Okay? They're most afraid of that. And until we can get them past that, it's going to present a whole new set of parameters in order for banks to lend. So you can understand why banks might be a little bit, if you were a lender right now, would you have any special categories that people need to fit in order for you to lend money to them that you feel comfortable you're going to get it back?
Oh, you got a lot of money in your account.
Okay, so you would want them to be able to indemnify themselves a little bit better, which may require them to have a little bit more of a down payment, right? Because what do you think lenders are going to be most leery of? They're going to be leery of the prospect, and they're going to be leery of the subject, meaning what's being mortgaged. Because you have to understand there's going to be a break in the employment and there's going to be a break in the pricing. You follow that? So what we need to do is we need to look at this and we need to be able to sit down with someone. This is not meant to scare anybody. This is meant to educate you so you know that the person that you're dealing with is going to be ready, willing, and able to purchase or ready, willing, and able to sell. And you got to know the conditions that you're working in. You can do business as usual, and you're going to run into problems that you've never seen before. Or you can do business the right way, deal with people that want to be dealt with and want to hear the truth and get the desired outcome. That's up to you. But I'm telling you, the risk that you're going to make as an agent is thinking that everything's going to go back to the way it was, and that is not going to happen. Okay, so does anybody not agree that banks are pretty much going to be the final domino, if you will, on deciding whether houses sell or not? Is anyone thinking that that's not going to be the case?
Bank is the answer.
Lending is going to be the answer, and banks are going to be looking at things in a certain way.
Yeah.
You could have mortgage applications that are approved and get disapproved on the day of closing because it's no more 72 hours. That went out the window. They're going to recheck the income the day of closing. So if you have someone that doesn't have a steady income or someone that has a questionable job, okay, that doesn't fit into the traditional way of looking at a loan, because that's what we're going back. We're going to go back to traditional norms. Not untraditional norms, traditional norms. So you're going to have certain DTIs, debt to income ratios that are going to be looked at. You're going to have certain down payments that are looked at. You're going to be having less leverage on people being lent money. All these things are going to become more conservative until banks feel less angst on the risk that they're taking to lend money. Okay, so mortgage credit available index, right? So let's take a look at this for a minute. The higher the peak, the bigger the eligibility. Look where we are today. Okay, so it went from getting a loan very, very easily in 2005, 6, 7, and then it dropped all the way down to here in 2008. Now, we all know what happened in 2008 and 2009, right? Does anybody not know? That was the first Great Recession. That's when we lent too much money to people who shouldn't have been lent to. And that's when when we had the mortgage problem. And that's when the country lost 25% of its net worth. Look where the numbers are now. It's a little bit higher than that. So the mortgage credit availability index is almost at where it was in 2008, 2009. Now you speak to real estate agents from 2008 and 2009, they'll tell you there was no mortgage available index because nobody got a loan. There's a reason why they call that the recession. Okay? It felt more like a depression. So banks, when they're calculating someone's ability to get a loan, they take all these things in consideration. They want to know the amount they're borrowing, the risk that they're taking, the interest rate, the cost of giving the loan. They want to know if they're going to be able to make the payment. They're going to want to know how much is being financed. They want to feel comfortable on all these factors before they give a person dime one in order to purchase a home. You need to understand this, and you need to understand how a bank can control this at any time, because the bank controls every part of the lending process. And they can change their process at any given time in order to manage their risk better. By knowing this as an agent, it should cause you to talk to your buyers a little bit differently. Do you see that? Do you see where when you get a buyer, you have to kind of insulate this buyer and know that you're working with someone that's ready, willing, and able? Okay? Now, here's the things that differ from the last time the market went south and to today. The last time the market went south, there was 8.2 months of inventory worth. Almost 3/4 of a year of inventory was available at any given time in 2007, which is a very, very big indicator of a buyer's market. By the way, this is given to you by the NAR. Okay, this slide I'm showing to you is by the NAR. Today, there's 3.1 months of inventory available, which is showing you this is not a buyer's market right now. It may be a perceived buyer's market, but it's not a buyer's market in terms of inventory. Does anyone not see that? Is someone talking to me? Okay, I guess not. Anyway, does everybody see how this is not a buyer's market in terms of inventory?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we know it's not a buyer's market in terms of inventory. Let's look at the next slide. All the homes in America today, right? 53.8% of the homes in America have at least 50% equity. I'll say it again. 53% of the homes in America today have at least 50% equity. That means people are sitting on 50% of their equity. Whatever their home is worth, they're figuring that 53.8% of these people own at least half of it. Of that 53%, 37% of those homes are free and clear. No money owed whatsoever. So the people are sitting on all equity. Now, if you're dealing with someone who has no bills to pay, might they be able to sell their home for more of a reasonable price than someone who has a high mortgage that they need to satisfy in order to move forward?
Yes.
So then, knowing the person that you're dealing with, knowing the amount of indebtedness that they have, and knowing how this might affect the market, might let us have a little bit of a different conversation with them, don't you think?
Yep.
So this is why when we told you that it's so important to ask in-depth questions, it's so important to get to know the who before you know the why. Because people's perceptions are going to change. People that want to sell their home are going to, can everybody just mute their mics, please? People who want to sell their homes are going to want to sell them. And if they sell them for a little less, if they have 100% equity, so be it. it gets them to where they want to go. And they're buying and selling within the same market pressures. Is that not true? Do you think every market is feeling the same pressure as this market right now?
No.
You don't. I think that eventually it will. Because this staying in place, this whole shutting down of the economy, although it's not happening everywhere at the same time, it is going to happen. And we are going to experience pretty much the same thing, but not on the same level. So you need to understand that everybody you speak to, whether they want to believe it or not, are going to be put under the same stresses. Some people are just going to have a little bit more maneuverability, if you will. But everybody's going to have the same stress. So 26.7% of the mortgage homes have at least 50% equity. 37% are free and clear. But a total of 53.8% have at least 50% equity. Those are the ones that are free and clear, and those are the ones that have at least 50% equity in the home. So that means you have a better than 50-50 chance of talking to someone that has some position where they could sell their home and not have to worry about every last dollar. Because if you bought your house last year and you want to sell it this year, do you have to worry about every last dollar if you mortgaged it 95%?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's something that you really have to take into consideration when you're talking to someone. Who might this affect more than anyone else? Well, the people that are going to have the hardest time with this are people who want to sell their homes quickly and have a lot of debt. That might be a whole different conversation, and then you're looking at a whole different bank risk involved. Okay, what about all the job losses? We've got to take that into consideration too, right? Because not only are we looking at the real estate market in terms of the amount of equity that's had in it, we also have to look at the amount of people that are losing their job. Right now they say what, 16 million? Well, here's a breakdown as of April 3rd. Okay, this shows you every industry and the ones that are being hurt the most. See construction workers and healthcare workers? See how low their percentage is? Child daycare workers, which are, by the way, essential, because that's the way people are going to get back to work. They're going to have to do something with their children. But 59.5% of food services and drink places are a big part of the unemployment because they're a huge part of the service economy that we are. What do you think is going to happen to 60% of that industry? You think all those bars and all those restaurants are coming back?
Nope.
Think there's going to be a flood into the unemployment?
Yep.
Big time. Big time.
I think you're going to have a re-education and a restructuring of things. I think those things will eventually come back, but those things are going to come back last, and I don't think people are going to be able to wait. So I think you're going to have somebody step in, whether it be state level, federal level, city level, whatever it is. There has to be a re-education of these people in order to get them into an industry that's going to be a little bit more supportive. Also, too, a lot of people, if you remember when we were talking about the first shift and we ask you to see things as an opportunity, you need to look at it, and people are looking at this market right now and they're seeing an opportunity to push forth their model. And because we're going to talk about selling their homes and listing their homes and doing business with the least amount of contact as possible, we are slowly but surely showing them that they do not need agents as much as they think they do. So we have to think about both sides of the coin, and we have to think about keeping ourselves relevant in order to keep a job and in order to keep an industry. So you need to think about that too. But here's the thing, unemployment rates are not necessarily in line with home sales. Now, I know that sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but this slide shows you that there's no direct relationship, because sometimes people with money will always seek out the time of value. So here's the unemployment rates that you're seeing right now. The rates that you see here in 19 and 20, that is number 4, they don't have a time to calculate it because the year's not gone yet, right? But we were at 4% or a little under that right before the proverbial shit hit the fan, if you will. Okay? So we're going to be looking at massive unemployment. We have to worry about people getting hired back into their jobs, which again is going to present a real risk for lenders. So if someone's a police officer, if someone's a nurse, if someone's a teacher, or someone works for the city or has some sort of guaranteed job, they might be perceived as a little less riskier than someone who works in a situation, or especially someone who's self-employed, as far as what a bank may be willing to do and not do. So that's something you may want to take into consideration as well. Right? So banks are going to look at your credit score, your down payment, whether you're looking to purchase, refi, or cash out of a home. Does everybody know the differences between a purchase or refi and a cash out? Well, a purchase is when you purchase a home, right? You put a certain amount of money down, you mortgage a certain amount of money, you get the home. Refi, you already own the home, you're just going to refinance it because rates are better, and you're going to refinance it for the exact amount of money that you owe on it. A cash out is you've gotten a lot of equity in your home, and now you're going to use part of that equity. In order for you to gain back that equity, you're going to take a loan that's going to include part of that equity, and that's taking cash out of the property. The current economy is going to be a big factor in how people lend. It's also going to have a big factor if it's a primary residence, a secondary home, or an investment. And we're going to talk about this because right now, all I'm looking at is the residential aspect of lending. I am not looking at the commercial aspect of lending. We'll talk about that at another time. But primarily, your business comes from the residential home market. So I wanted to focus on that. Loan amount is going to have a great bearing on how people lend, because if I have to give you 60% of the money the house is worth, as opposed to giving you 95% of the money, that's less risk to me, because now I only have to sell the home for 60% of the value, not 95% of the value. And are you willing to do something to start buying the mortgage down? Because what's one thing that you're not being told that's going to happen? What do you think is going to happen when this economy starts up again? What do you think is going to happen in October, November, and December of this year? And I don't care about the presidential election. Whoever gets elected is going to get elected. What do you think is going to happen? What do you think banks are going to want to happen?
What the hell? Wow.
Banks are going to want interest rates to go up. It's another way of protecting their risk. They're getting the money for little to nothing. They're going to lend it out at a greater amount, percentage. And the reason why they're going to do that is because it's going to help them hedge their risk, right? It's like anything else. If you have good credit, you get less of an interest rate. If you have bad credit, you get a higher interest rate, correct? So if that's the case, banks are going to want to be protected, because everybody, you know, when you have 16 million people hitting unemployment in a very short amount of time, that's a lot of unemployed. And we really haven't even gotten deep into this yet. There's more to come. So you have to look at it that way. Okay. So these are current employment rates as compared to past financial problems. This is the Great Depression of 1930. The unemployment rate was 8.7 in 30, 15.9, 23.6, 24.9, 21.7, 24.9. 1 out of every 4 people did not have a job. If that was the case in the United States right now, that would be close to 85 million people out of work. That's a lot of people. So 2020 is going to be 15%. That's the current crisis right now. So that's almost at 1931. So 15% of Americans, okay, or people who live in the United States will not have jobs. Now you can look at that two ways. 15% don't, 85% do. So you have to look at that. In our worst times that we can imagine, in 2008 and 2009, the unemployment was only 9.9%. And that was enough to basically stop the market cold. But remember, when that happened, there was almost 9 months supply of houses on the market. There are 3 months supply of houses on the market right now. So if you look at other economic factors, right? Economically, it's saying that if there's not a lot of houses on the market and you have a good amount of buyers, you have a good balance of supply and demand. Here you had such an oversupply and such a low demand for many, many reasons, it basically caused the market to stall. They don't believe that these factors exist in 2020 and 21. But the only thing they have to compare it to is history. So let's talk about a recession, right? Because people are going to talk about this. They're going to say we're already in it. So let's say what a recession is, right? So consumer spending decreases because businesses start to fail. Let's check that off, because that's happening right now, right? Banks are less willing to lend because they don't want the risk. What happened last time that caused our recession was banks were overselling mortgages. They were giving mortgages to people that shouldn't have gotten them in the first place, which self-perpetuated what was going to come. That has not been the case. Anybody who's spoken to a lender pretty much knows that you have to pretty much cross all the T's and dot all the I's in order to get a loan. Yes, they were becoming a little bit more liberalized in the way they were lending because they thought the economy would take care of itself. That's not happening, so they're going to become a little bit more conservative. Fewer job opportunities for college grads. Kids were coming out of college. They were spending a great amount of money on their education, and they weren't getting jobs that were commensurate with the amount of money they owe, which you're not even going to hear about this, but the next crisis that was predicted was the student loan crisis. You have people walking around paying $1,000, $1,200, $1,500 a month in student loans and have nothing but an education to show for it, and the education's not paying for the loan. So that's something that wasn't even addressed. You had an inordinate amount of people in 2008 and 2009 who lost their homes because banks put in a fail-safe called robo-signing, where they were able to streamline the foreclosure process and get people out of their homes very quickly. That's not the case anymore. And businesses went bankrupt at a point of almost 1% a year. And right now you don't have that because you have the government stepping in and giving small business loans to stimulate the business. Whether that's taken the right way or the wrong way, we don't know yet. Only history will show us that. But there's other factors involved in this particular set of circumstances that wasn't involved in 2008 that may help this economy come back a lot quicker. Okay. Banks can influence the way appraisers look at property. And although this is kind of set up to be a joke, it's true. This is the way you look at your home. This is the way a buyer looks at your home. This is the way an appraiser looks at your home. This is the way a bank looks at your home, an inspector, and a tax assessor. And pictures are worth 1,000 words, but it's true. But what I really want to concentrate on is I want to concentrate on the appraiser. Banks cannot influence the value of homes, but appraisers can. And what happens is, as an appraiser, they ask you, or they put you under a different set of norms, and they say, we want to see this. If we're going to lend 100%, we need to see 100% of its value back in the appraisal. They'll protect themselves on the back end in order to show themselves a little bit better on the front end. Does anyone not understand what I'm talking about there? Has anybody run into the situation where houses have come in short? Where the appraisal on the house came in a little less than the value of what they were selling it for? Rose, are you on?
Yes, I'm on.
Okay, Rose, that happened to us, didn't it?
Yes, it did. Good morning, everyone.
Okay, so basically, when that happened, Rose, we had the possibility of losing the deal, right?
Yes, and the buyers were also nervous as well.
Of course, absolutely. So we had a buyer that was a little willing to come up with a little bit more money. The seller came down a little, and we met somewhere in the middle, and we put the deal together, and that was the end of it.
Yes.
Now, here's the thing. Do you think the bank is comfortable right now?
No, the banks are nervous.
I would say that bank is particularly nervous. And you have to understand why the banks are so nervous. If the banks are in a situation where they're portfolioing their own paper, meaning they're not selling the loans to get more money to make more loans, okay? Savings banks, small savings banks do this all the time. They do not count on the secondary market for influx of cash. Their borrowers give them a lot of that liquidity. So they're not so concerned on what the secondary market thinks. However, large banks and banks that do a lot of mortgage lending, they want the secondary market to come in and buy up these loans as quick as they're putting them out. You've spoken to a lot of people. Oh, I started out with ABC Bank and I wound up with CBA Bank. It doesn't matter, but that means they're selling their product because they're getting more money in to sell more product. Do you understand how that works? If they're doing risky loans or whatever the secondary market views as risky, then they're not getting as much money in, therefore they don't have as much money to lend. And if they don't have that much money to lend, they have to prove themselves to the secondary market. A good way of doing that is by lending to people who are less riskier. But as I said, risk can be real or perceived. How do you think someone's going to perceive someone who owns a restaurant right now? Even if it's a very lucrative restaurant.
Risky.
Risky, right? If you wanted to sell a restaurant right now, do you think you'd be able to get a really good price for it?
No.
No. As a matter of fact, most people will be looking to steal it from you. And the reason why is you can't prove that you have any business coming your way anytime soon, do you? So what was once considered value now doesn't have as much value. In reality, the value didn't really change. The perception of the value changed. Is the perception of the value of the real estate agent going to change? And if so, what are you going to do to protect yourself against that? See, I think we have to become a little bit chameleon here. I think we have to understand, in order for us to survive, we got to learn how to work both sides of the fence. Meaning we have to learn how to work the non-personal end of real estate and the personal end of real estate. We might use different tools in order to do that, but that's what we're going to need in order to survive. If there's no agents to take any Tom Ferry courses, can Tom Ferry survive?
No.
No, of course not. So what he's saying by making these Zoom calls, he's promoting touch. Because he knows that if touch goes away, if people don't need touch to work real estate, then there's no need for the agent, which means there's no need for Tom Ferry. We can just compartmentalize everything, throw it in a big blender, and that's the end. So it's very, very important when he says doing these Zoom meetings, He wants to promote touch. Because when we promote touch, then there's a reason for certain other things to become what they are. Okay. So I spoke to a number of lenders, and these were the questions I asked. So I said, where do you see the market shifting to and why? And of all the lenders I spoke to, everyone said that they see it going towards a buyer's market, but not a perfect buyer's market. Because what makes a buyer's market is an inordinate amount of inventory, because buyers have so much to choose from, and there's so little buyers and there's so much for sale, right? It's definitely not going to be a seller's market, and they don't see it being a flat market. They see it being a buyer's market, at least for a little while. So how do you think lenders will approach the market post-COVID? And that was very interesting, because what they said was lenders are already taking steps to prepare for that. And the first thing that they did was they looked at FHA. Because as FHA goes, as the federal government goes in lending money, so will the rest of the lending community. So what they did in FHA was they took the FICO score from, first it was 580, then it was 620, now it's 660. So without a FICO score of at least 660, don't even bother. And if it's non-conventional, they're going to look at it a little bit differently. Now, non-conventional means a couple of things. If they don't live into what a conventional lender looks like, or if they exceed what a conventional lender wants to lend. Now, what I'm saying by that is everybody knows what a jumbo mortgage is, correct? Jumbo loans right now are under a lot of pressure. Banks do not want to lend an inordinate amount of money because the risk is too great. So you're getting a lot of pushback right now on jumbo loans. So if you're in a conventional level and you're a strong borrower and you have a strong job, chances are you'll get the loan. But you better have a FICO of at least 660 or don't come knocking, because that's not going to happen. The third question I asked is, do you think lenders will tighten guidelines in order to decrease risk? They already have started. So that's an overwhelming yes. Everybody said yes to that. I said, do you see lenders introducing any type of stimulus to keep the market moving? Resoundingly, everybody said no. There'll be no lender stimulus whatsoever. As a matter of fact, they're going to become more conservative in their lending practices, and everyone should fully expect interest rates to go up in order to hedge against perceived losses. If I can't get it through volume, I'll get it through the number. How will lenders view breaks in employment due to the coronavirus, and will essential workers now have preference over non-essential? Lenders can't discriminate. They'll tell you that right off the bat. Will underwriters look at an essential worker different than a non-essential worker? You bet your life they will. So you need to know when you speak to your lender what your lender is looking for, and you need to ask your buyer if they fit that. And if they don't, you either need to find another lender or find another buyer. But don't waste your time, because that has not changed. The amount of time that you're going to have to dedicate to something is 24 hours. That's it. That's all you got. You got 24 hours in a day. No more, no less. How you conduct them and what you do with that time is going to greatly depend upon how much money you make here. Do you think lenders will require safeguards in order to shield them from risk? That was yes, absolutely. Maybe a little bit more money down. They might start asking for points on the loan. You might see a PMI pick up in terms of what they're asking for if you're going under 20% down. They're not going to make it easier. They're going to make it harder because they want to decrease their risk. You also may be looking at an ask from that particular lender to streamline the foreclosure process in case they go belly up on the loan, that they don't follow particular norms. Because right now, if you were foreclosed on, it would probably take the lender anywhere from a low of a year to a high of 3 years in order to get back the help. But there is no court right now. So right now you have a backlog of, let's say, 30 days in court cases. Let's say we all go back to work May 15th, right? Courts go into session, everything. You're looking at 45-day backlog of court cases around the country. How far do you think that's going to push back foreclosures? How far do you think that's going to push back evictions? How far do you think that's going to push back any kind of court action? So in one way, it's going to make it easier if someone's about to go belly up. They're probably going to be able to talk to their bank a little bit differently. Because do you think banks are going to want to go into the real estate industry? You think they're going to want to get foreclosures and houses back and put them back on the market and try to sell them? There's no way. They don't want that. They want people to stay in their homes so they can go lend to other people who need to stay in their homes so they can get money coming in on a regular basis. We also asked, what loans do you think will encumber the largest changes? Bar none, FHA. As FHA goes, so will conventional. So the federal government will change the way its lending policies take effect, and that will trickle down into every other aspect of the lending process. Lenders have certain safeguards like appraisals, qualifications that they build in to limit the risk to the people that they're giving money to. You need to understand that as an agent in order for you to work with people that are actually going to go to contract on houses and close them. Here's the kind of good news here. This is called a V-shape recovery. And according to Goldman Sachs and the 2020 GDP, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, and JP Morgan, which are some of the biggest lenders around, see us going in a V-shaped recovery, which means we're going to be all the way down here in Q2, but let me just show you that. We're going to be down here in Q2, but by the third quarter, everybody's predicting us to be over the line, to pass the 0% GDP growth. Now, I don't know what they're basing that on because they didn't go to a full explanation here. But the fact that Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and Morgan Stanley are looking at things the same way is a very, very, very positive thing. So you need to keep that in mind, that the people who are in charge of the money lending, for the most part, and these are the three biggest lenders that you have, all see something positive happening in the third and fourth quarter. So it's going to be business as unusual. It's not going to be business as usual. And if anybody thinks it's going to be business as usual, I think you're sadly mistaken. And I would love to tell you that, yeah, we're going to fall right back into the norm and everything's going to be the way it used to be. And we'll walk off into the sunset and sing, you know, a fa la la. That's not going to be the case. The case is it's never going to look the same, not for a while. It didn't in 2008 and 2009. It didn't after 9/11. It didn't after the crash in the late 80s, and it didn't after the malaise in the mid 90s. Things change. But every time they changed, so did the real estate industry. For the better. And one thing that I think Tom Ferry said that you guys didn't pick up on, he never used the word 5 million. He used the word 10 million. Because he knows there's two sides to every transaction. So on a more positive note, when I used to tell you that we did between 5 million sales and 4 million sales every year for 15 years, what I should have said was we were doing between 8 and 10 million transactions a year, because there's two sides to every transaction, right? And that's good news. That's more. So we're actually doing more business rather than less. And that's good. But what we need to realize is that the way we conduct business is going to be the difference maker. What Tom Ferry said is true. If you do your work now, you'll be able to get right back into the swing of things because you'll know what to do. And here's my question to you. Let's look at Ozone Park as an example. The average house in Ozone Park right now sells for around $625,000. So let's do a hypothetical situation. A house comes on the market right now for $650,000. That's supposed to be $650,000, and the seller wants to sell it for $575,000. Who do you call first and why? If you haven't been hammering down on your sphere and know that there's someone in that sphere that may jump on that house right away, someone else may have that person in their sphere as well and jump on them before you do. That's why you need to keep in touch with the people you need to keep in touch with. You need to keep on hammering down on them. You need to keep on categorizing. Are they ready to go? Are they ready? Are they getting ready to get ready? Are they so scared they're paralyzed right now? Because now you need to be the voice of reason with everybody. Let's manage expectations. Let's get people a little bit more into the fold by talking to them, by asking them questions, by feeling out the who before we feel out the why. You think people are scared right now? You think they feel uneasy? You think they're looking forward to tomorrow? As far as real estate goes and everything else does? I mean, 5 weeks ago, if I told you you want to cruise around the world, you'd be really, really happy. Would you feel that way now? Would you all want to get on a cruise ship right now?
No.
Okay, well, things changed, right? And they changed in a very short amount of time. But people will go on cruises again. And people will get on airplanes again, and people will travel again. But they'll do it when they feel comfortable. And if they don't feel comfortable, they'll do it slower. The whole idea here is comfort level. Speak to people. Speak to their needs, talk about their wants, but understand that you might be dealing with someone that you cannot satisfy because the market will not allow you to. We're all victims of the market, aren't we? And no one is going to have more of their thumb on the market than the lenders, because the lenders are the ones that are on the front line. They're the ones that are giving it up. And they're going to want to protect their position the same way I want you to learn how to protect yours. You need to understand that lenders are going to protect theirs. One of the reasons why I'm not going to come on and talk to you about the usual things is because nothing is usual anymore. Why talk to you about how to value something when the way you're going to value it is going to change? So why not prepare you for that inevitability rather than talk about the way things used to be? What isn't changing is that as a real estate agent, you need to be in front of and on top of your clientele. Not telling them get ready for business, telling them to get ready for life and how you're going to make it more comfortable for them. And we are going to have to become experts at non-contact real estate. But we also need to know that when contact does come back into the fold, we need to be on top of that and show people how important it is. National Association of Realtors is already coming out with all kinds of different ways on how to show a house without actually showing it. They know they're going to need to survive. What else can we add into that formula? What other things do you think teams are going to do in order to make this process better? So you need to keep all those things in mind when you start thinking about your business and moving forward. And if you truly want to still be a real estate agent when all this is said and done. The next class we're going to have is going to be a continuation of this class, but we're not going to be talking about the residential aspect as much as we're going to be talking about the commercial aspect, because there's a lot more pressure on that than there is on the residential side.
Hey, Marco.
Yep.
A question for you, because something just dawned on me. It's you know how we used to make the cold calls and everything now, right?
Right.
As far as like going for, oh, can I preview your property? I feel that now once we get back at the beginning, that's going to be okay now as far as previewing the property. I mean, making that something as far as not having a buyer on hand, previewing the property will be a little easier now.
Sure. We can definitely do that. Or you could say, hey, listen, can I come by? I'd like to take a quick walkthrough tour of it so I can get it out to as many buyers as possible.
Right. Okay.
You know, so let me send you a small staging protocol. I'll be over tomorrow. You bring the guy who's going to, or you make sure that the person who goes over there is going to be able to do a decent walkthrough tour of the property. Don't worry about the professionalism of it. Worry about the contextuality of it. And then buyers are going to have to understand that this is going to be the new norm for a little while. Here's the thing. If you're a seller, do you want people walking in and out of your house?
No way.
Okay. If you're a buyer, do you want to walk in and out of someone's house?
Depends on the buyer, but no.
Okay. What if the property's vacant?
They would want to go.
Listen, I just had a house close on my block. Okay. They came with a moving truck, one person. If you want to do something, you'll get it done. You'll find a way. So I think people who really want to sell will welcome any new ideas you bring to the table. My question is, what new ideas do you have? Because this is not business as usual. This is business as unusual. But you could do it. It could be done. It's being done now. We may unearth a whole new way of doing this business that streamlines the process. You know what else is being streamlined as we talk? The closing process. There's a whole bunch of lawyers in all kinds of chat rooms and all kinds of Zoom conferences that are saying, you know what? We don't have to get together. We can wire the money. We could do this all. Just think how quick closings would be if nobody had to get up and go anywhere. Now all you have to do is schedule FaceTime on your computer. It should have been that way years ago. This whole, I got to come to you, you got to come to me, that was all the bar's way of saying, this is just our way of making more money. It had to have to be that way for years. For years. But now things are starting to change a little bit more, and that some of that change is going to be changed for the better. Streamlining this process is not a bad thing. If you could sell houses quicker and have contact, but have it so substantial that you still are able to give them a service, that would be a good thing, wouldn't it? You'd be able to do more business. And here's the thing, a lot of real estate agents are going to get out. They're going to get out and they're never going to come back. Because this is going to be too much of a change for them. You know, a lot of people's clocks have been pushed up. My wife was talking about retiring in 2 years. Now she's talking about retiring next year or this year. You know, she's a registered nurse. She's had enough. When people are shown their mortality, they look at things differently. Their priorities change. You have to be astute enough and aware enough as an agent when you're talking to someone to see that that may have happened. And all these things that I talk to you about, I don't talk to you about for you to be the great Oz and have all the knowledge. I just want you guys to know what to expect and don't let it come as any surprise. The way you choose to handle it in your business, that's up to you. You're all independent contractors. What I can tell you is don't placate someone. Don't tell someone something that you think they want to hear in order for you to buy back their business, because that's business as usual. And I don't want to see you get trapped into that. I think there's going to be plenty of business to go around. I think the whole thing is what the people are expecting out of that business. All we want to do is either list it, sell it, or both and move on. That's all we want to do. And we want to build a business. It's not about the one property, it's about the many properties. So we have to keep that in mind when we're moving forward. It's very, very important that you guys keep that in mind. So if I had to ask you if you learned anything new today, what would it be? What did we learn?
Business
Change
as
is here.
usual.
What's that?
Change is here.
Change is here. Okay, well, what does that mean though?
That means we have to educate our clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But you don't educate them in a way of sit down and let me tell you a story. You don't do that. I didn't do any of that, right? Everything I showed you today came from a third party, whether it be Tom Ferry, Keeping Current Matters, Mike Harney, Steve Harney rather, because what I think doesn't really matter. It has no bearing. I'm not a lender. So if I go into somebody's house and I tell them what I think, am I helping them? I got to tell them what I know.
And it's funny that you say that, Marco, because out of a lot of stuff from the Tom Ferry video that I watched, he said a lot of good information, but on his desk, I'm not sure if a lot of you noticed, it said a good coach can change a game and a great coach can change a life. And basically, I think we're coaches right now to our clients, and we're trying to, you know, help them and change their life.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Listen, the easiest thing in the world to do is nothing. We can all sit down and do a lot of nothing, right? Or we can look at something and say, what is this meant to teach us? And I think that sometimes getting people out of a business, although it's harsh, is necessary. And it's necessary in order for people to move on. Yes, coaching your clients and coaching the people you know and doing it in a way that allows them to at least be open-minded to see what's coming is going to be the way you're going to be the calming voice in the room. Because they're going to hear a lot of people telling them what they think. Everybody thinks something different about this. If you don't believe me, watch any financial news show. Everybody wants to think they know what's going to happen. This hasn't happened for anyone. How do they know what's going to happen? It hasn't happened. We have nothing to draw back on other than other things that didn't have the same factors. So if we want to look at the last recession was driven by bad loans. We don't have that right now. The last recession was built on an inordinate amount of inventory. We don't have that right now, which is why people who manage money, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, are looking at a V-shaped recovery because they are saying we don't have the same thing stimulus on the other side of the market that caused that other market to fail. Why do we think this is going to fail? So the only thing that's going to keep it down is the perception of the market and the amount of unemployment and how the lenders are going to lend and to whom they're going to lend to. But if you fit that peg into the hole when it comes to a lender, you have a better chance of selling that property, don't you? And when you sit down with a seller and you say, hey, look, it's not only ready, willing, and able, it's ready, willing, and able and being able to qualify. We're in contact with lenders that we know that the people that we're dealing with are going to be able to go from point A to point B. I don't know if everyone else could say that. And the reason why you could do it is because you have an understanding of the market that they don't. The wanting of this to be returned to business as usual is going to cause people to have an unrealistic look at this. And that's going to work to your advantage if you understand what you need to do and how to get it done. It's not going to be business as usual. People are going to want it to be business as usual, but it's not going to be. And it won't be until we have a handle on what's going on right now. And we don't. The simple fact of the matter is we're going to go back to work and we're going to have the chance of getting infected because there's nothing that helps this other than people staying away. And they know that people can't stay away forever because we have to put the economy back to work sooner rather than later. It's a very unreasonable way of thinking about it, don't you think? But it's the only realistic way of looking at it. So what we need to do is we need to understand that real estate will transact because it always does. It always does. Where are we going to be on that side of the equation? And talking to the people that you know already and getting used to having those conversations, getting used to tapping into the who before we tap into the why. How are they feeling? They'll probably welcome the conversation, by the way. So it's really, really important that you guys get that. What else do we learn? What else do we know now that we didn't know before?
It's not business as usual. We're going to be in the new norm.
Yeah, but it's the new norm everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
we just got to adapt. We have to know what the new norm will be like, and we have to adapt.
There's no doubt about it. Absolutely no doubt about it. Has everybody, let me ask you a question here, and then we'll get back to this in 1 second. Has everybody talked to their creditors? Trying to limit the damage on the amount of money you're putting out every month to manage your money a little bit better? Has everybody done that? And if you haven't, why not? You know, listen, everybody understands that things are not happening the way they should. So if you start talking to your creditors a little bit and saying, I can do this, but I can't do that, they'll welcome it. It won't hurt your credit score, and you'll move on. If you just don't pay the bill, that could be a problem. So something rather than nothing is always worth it to them, and they're more than willing to listen. I haven't found anyone who hasn't listened. So please keep that in mind as well, because it's very depressing watching your money disappear. And buy things you need, not things you don't. Okay? Don't try to pacify yourself by getting things that you don't need right now. Would you say people look at things a little bit differently since this has happened?
Yeah.
What do you think they put more priority on?
Needs, not wants.
I'm sorry?
Everything is about the needs now.
Okay, let me hear from somebody else. Where do you think the priority has changed?
Family.
Family? Okay. Where else?
People are holding on to their money now.
People are holding on to their money now. Okay. All right.
Starbucks.
Anybody else?
Starbucks making it at home now.
We're becoming a little bit more self-sufficient. Right, but that hurts an industry. You know, that hurts an industry. We are a service economy. We are not a manufacturing economy anymore. We're a service economy. So if we don't buy into the service, then where's the economy? So I think you're going to see a little bit of a change in that line too. I also think that you guys really, really have to sit down and say, what can we introduce to our model that's going to let our model stand out? Can we do all that in a bag of chips? Because if we can't, it's going to make it much easier for someone to come in and do what we do it for less, and do it more efficiently. We got to keep our industry relevant, and at the same time, open it up to massive change. But it may not be for the worse. It may actually be for the better. Because there were a lot of things about our industry that took too much time. What if we can capitalize on that? How many people rent apartments?
I do.
Okay. You think programs changed a little bit in the eyes of the landlord?
Absolutely.
If you haven't mastered that conversation by now, if you haven't figured it out by now, you're losing something in the process, because that's guaranteed money for the landlord. The landlord does not have guaranteed money from anyone, but they do have guaranteed money from programs, don't they?
Yep.
So therefore, the program that didn't look so good before, if it could be explained okay now, might be the difference maker. That might be the difference maker to them. That might be the conversation that you have that opens their eyes to a little bit more. Because you have to understand, in order for you to really start altering the way people perceive things, is you need to be able to have a creative way of speaking to them that allows them to make a decision based on what they're most comfortable with. If we can't make them comfortable, we're never, ever, ever going to be able to do business with them. And sometimes most people think the comfort level is placating them. Don't worry, it'll be all right. Everything will go back to the way it was before. Is that true? Is that true? Is everything going to go back to the way it was before?
Nope.
No, it never does. It never, ever does. It wasn't the same after 9/11. It wasn't the same after 2008, 2009. Just ask an appraiser. You know how many appraisers got out of the business after 2008 and 2009? When they found out they had to sign an affidavit before they went to go on an appraisal? But the funny thing was that all the older appraisers that got out who said, I'm never signing that affidavit, every new appraiser that came into the business said, oh yeah, you got to sign an affidavit. Once you got rid of that first layer, everything fell in line. So you got to think of that. What else did we learn? Were you guys surprised at the way lenders are looking at things? Yes?
Yeah.
Do you think maybe that has to somewhat alter the way you're going to talk to a lender when you're speaking to them? Maybe you have to get more questions answered?
Yeah, and figure out like their main the guidelines now, and you know, because that's going to be tightening up.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The whole FHA thing. And then they have so many little levers that they can press within the process itself to draw it out a little bit further, to look into the person a little bit deeper, to look at a blip in the credit differently. They have so many safety valves. How many do you have? You have one. You have one safety valve. That's the amount of knowledge you have of what will work and what won't work. That's the only thing you have. Someone calls you up tomorrow and tells you they're interested in the property. You have two things that you could do. Either develop that interest or not develop that interest. But once you develop that interest, you need to know the person that you're working with, don't you?
Yeah.
And if you don't know the person that you're working with, might you waste your time? Might you waste their time? Might it not turn into anything profitable? These are all things to think about. Now, if you look at the flip side of this, if you're able to speak to an agent from another office a little bit more constructively about the way you're looking at the market, and then they go, wow, where'd you get that from? Might you be able to recruit some people in and start building up your downline?
Yep.
Because this is all about growth, guys.
Yeah.
It's all about exponential growth. So the people that are going to rebel against the industry and get out, they're going to do what they got to do. And other people are going to look at this and say, hey, wow, there's a real opportunity here if it's worked the right way. No one in KW is running and hiding. They're all looking at this in a way that they're trying to get ahead of it. And that's what we need to do. That's what you need to do. As young agents, you're positioned perfectly because you know a little about the old market, but not enough for it to affect you so badly that you won't welcome change. Other agents are so ingrained about what went on, they could barely take what was going on before. This is going to be the catalyst that gets them right over the top and pushes them out. You're going to see a lot of older agents leave the business. So, I want to thank you guys very much. I hope you appreciated this, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. It's nice to talk to people when you haven't talked to them in a while. Rose, if you could just do me a favor and you could take a picture of the screen with everybody who's attending. I don't have the ability to do that for some reason. And send that to me, that would be fantastic.
I'm not sure how to get everyone on the screen.
Yeah, it's easy, Rose. Just get into it.
Okay.
Oh,
Well,
I got it. Yay.
thanks very much, Rose. I do appreciate it. Guys, do you have any questions before we sign off?
No, thanks, Marco.
Listen, anytime. Listen,
Thank you very
guys,
much, Marco. Appreciate it.
if I could tell you one thing, do not take this thing for granted. Make sure you keep your distancing. Make sure you wear a mask. Make sure you wash your hands. You do not want to fool around with this. This is not a joke, and it's not old people. It's everybody. Everybody runs a risk.
It's funny, Mark, but half of the things is things we should have been doing anyway.
Yes, well, you know what? It's kind of ironic, but you're right. It's kind of ironic, but you're right. I hope everybody's okay.
Yeah. Thanks.
On that note, be safe. Enjoy the Easter.
Oh, Marco.
Yes.
The guy that signed the buyer's agreement with me just a week before the incident, this coronavirus,
Yes.
he died from coronavirus.
Wow.
Well, okay.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Not something that we like to hear. Unfortunately, that is the new norm.
Mm-hmm.
That is
Now his wife contracted it now, so she's in the hospital.
Wow. That's absolutely terrible.
That is crazy.
That is absolutely terrible. Well,
yeah.
My wife is on the other side of it. She was positive. She hit her 14th day yesterday. So with the exception of a few minor setbacks, she's okay. And I'm sure I couldn't get tested, but I'm sure I'm positive as well. And I seem to be doing okay. It's funny. It plays around with certain things, but the last 2 days I've been feeling a little bit more like myself. And last night I was able to put together this whole thing, and I've been working on it for a while. So, you know, it worked out okay. Any questions you guys have, please feel free. I'm going to be reaching out to the people that we're doing the one-on-ones with. And we're going to start doing some screen time because I want to start talking to you guys a little bit more one-on-one. If you need it, feel free to call me or email me, and I'll talk to all you guys real soon.
All right.
All right, guys. Everybody stay safe.
You're welcome. Take it easy, guys. Rose, send me that picture, okay?
Right now, I did.
Thank you, Rose.
You're welcome.
All right, bye-bye.
Everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.